What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic. What if Naruto got harem with Hinata Anko Tenten and Ino, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Naruto slowly opened his eyes, the morning sun peeking through the sole crack in his blinds. He quickly came to the realization that someone was doing something very naughty to him. He could feel a mouth wrapped around his thick member. Her lips lovingly worked over his member as her tongue coiled and ran over his length. He pulled back the sheets to see a head of brown hair bobbing on his coc. Morning Ayame, Naruto said as he watched his newest girl suck him. She moaned as she soothed her fingers toying with her womanhood. Ayame looked up at Naruto, lust filling her eyes as she continued to suck him. He wasn't sure when, but he had flipped some sort of switch with Ayame, making her lust for him almost non-stop. Much to his surprise, Tuki seemed okay with it rather than mad. Ayame picked up her pace, sousing at his coc with everything she had. Naruto ran his hands into her hair as she worked him. Naruto let out a groan as he neared his limit. He started to thrust into Ayame's mouth, getting closer and closer to erupting. Here it comes, Ayame, Naruto grunted as he blew his seed into Ayame's mouth. Ayame gulped down wave after wave of his seed. Ayame slowly pulled off him after giving him several licks, ensuring she had gotten as much of his seed as she could. I don't know why I find you so tasty, Ayame said, blushing as she licked the remnants of Naruto's seed off her lips. No idea, but it's a hell of a great wake-up call, Naruto replied, grinning. Her back was pinned to the wall as the hot water ran down their bodies. His lips assaulted her neck while her nails dug into his back. Her hair clung to her body as he slid in and out of her. She moaned loudly as he started to pump into her. She cried out his name again and again as her back arched into his chest, pressing their bodies together. Her body ached for his. She could never get enough of him. And he never seemed to have enough of her. Just about every day he would take her in some way or form. Whether it was his skilled tongue and lips on her puss or hours of their mind-blowing sex, he always made time for her just like the others. Naruto. Anko moaned loudly as she climaxed onto his coc. Naruto said nothing and continued to slam into her. His lips continued to toy with her neck and collarbone. A mix of bites and kisses sent shock waves of pleasure through her body. Anko wrapped her legs around his waist, feeling him kick his thrusting into high gear. Naruto slid his hands down to Anko's as groping her as he pumped. Fuck, you're really pulling me in today, Naruto grunted, feeling his limit fast approaching. Naruto couldn't hold off any longer and let loose into Anko, thoroughly filling her with his seed. Anko rested her head on Naruto's shoulder as she came down from her orgasmic high. Oh god, Naruto, Anko said weakly. You loved it like always, Naruto said, kissing her neck a few more times. Yes, I did, Anko replied as the water finally came to a stop. Naruto sat on his couch thinking over his living situation. He would need a bigger place if he got another girl. Maybe he could get something like a clan home like the Hyuga and Uchiha have. Hell, it would make it a lot easier to live. At the moment there was a lot of bed sharing, not that he minded it. Good morning, Naruto, a voice said, gaining his full attention. He looked to the doorway to see Ino standing in an incredibly see pair of black lace panties and a matching bra. Holy fuck, that's hot, Naruto said as she slowly walked over to him. I'm glad you like it, Ino said as she reached him. Naruto ran his hands up her legs, feeling her smooth skin. His fingers gently ran over her as into his. Ino lightly bit her lip as Naruto caressed her body. She still couldn't believe she ended up like this. She had completely and hopelessly fallen for Naruto. And what was surprising is that she didn't feel the need to be with him, she wanted to be with him. She was snapped out of her daydream when Naruto ran his tongue over her just about the hem of her panties. Focus, Ino, Naruto said slyly. Sorry, Ino replied before Naruto pulled her down onto his lap. I think you deserve a nice good fuck now, Naruto said as he placed her hand over the bulge in his pants. Oh god, yes, Ino said, biting her lip. Ino unzipped his fly and unbuttoned his pants. Naruto chuckled, watching her lustfully trying to free his member. To think just a little while ago you wouldn't have even given me the time of day, Naruto laughed. How times change, now fuck me, Ino said, freeing his member. Naruto hooked his fingers through Ino's panties, pulling them away. You want it so bad, put it in yourself. Naruto grinned as Ino quickly mounted him, sliding his length into her. Ino didn't hesitate to start riding him. She, like the others, lusted for him to a near unending amount. Ino placed her hands on his shoulders, trying to steady herself as she bounced as fast as she could. Naruto grabbed her. He started to pick up her pace even more. Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. Ino moaned his name each time she hit base on his thickness. She couldn't hold back when she rode him. Naruto ran his hands up her body, gently caressing her soft skin until he reached her breast. He locked his lips around one of her nipples, sucking on it as she bounced. Yes, cry out my name, Naruto groaned as Ino moaned his name again and again. He felt her walls constrict around him as she hit her climax. He moved his hands to her, his holding her still as he started to pound into her with renewed lust, wanting to fill her womb with his seed. Ino threw her head back in a deep moan as she climaxed hard onto Naruto's cock. Her body screamed for him to release. She needed to feel him fill her. Naruto gave a low feral groan as he hit his limit and blew into Ino's body. Oh yes, Ino cried out, feeling the fullness Naruto's seed gave her. Hinata finished washing the last breakfast plate, placing it onto the drying rack. She turned to see Naruto standing in the doorway, his eyes locked onto her. Hinata blushed lightly, seeing him blatantly staring at her body. Did you enjoy breakfast, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, trying to get him to focus on a different part of her body. Yes, it was truly delicious, but I'm hungry for something else now, Naruto said as he moved towards Hinata. Oh, and what might that be? Hinata asked, feigning ignorance. I'll make you anything you'd like, she added, biting her lip lightly as he reached her. How about I bend you over this table, tear your pants and panties off, get you nice and wet and make you moan and squirm? Naruto asked, pulling Hinata into his arms. Oh, that does sound tempting, but, Hinata said, slowly gauging his reaction. I'd like it if you make me scream in ecstasy like you do to Ino and Anko, Hinata said, looking into Naruto's eyes. Naruto's jaw slacked slightly in surprise. Hinata usually liked it gentle and with as much foreplay as he could give her. She was the epitome of tantric say, and here she was asking for it rough. Are you sure? Naruto asked. Hinata nodded positive. She wanted to see if she would like it rough or if she would prefer to keep it gentle. Naruto pulled Hinata over to the table, getting her to bend over, giving him free access to her body. Naruto hooked his fingers into Hinata's pants, pulling them down. Well, if you are positive, then brace yourself, this will hurt, but it should feel good after a few, Naruto said, dropping his pants. Hinata nodded again and gripped the table, reading herself for the hardest he could give. Naruto lined himself up and slammed home in one thrust. Hinata cried out as tears pricked her eyes. She didn't expect him to be this rough, but this is what she asked for. Naruto grabbed her and started to pound into her. Oh god, it hurts, Hinata cried out as she tightened her grip on the table. Naruto's thrust slowed instantly as he leaned over her. Are you still sure you want to do this? Naruto asked, hating to see tears in Hinata's eyes, even more so when he was the cause of them. Yes, I want to know if I can do this, Hinata said, pushing back against him. Okay, I'll try to be a little gentler, Naruto said as he started his thrusting up again. No, give it to me as hard as you can, Hinata said, looking over her shoulder. Naruto gave a nod, giving in to her plea. He gripped her tightly once more and started to pound her. Hinata did everything she could not to scream. But Naruto was just too big, she couldn't hold out very long. Thankfully for Hinata, before she was overcome by the pain, it started to subside and pleasure took its place. Her pain-filled cries died off and became lustful moans and passionate groans. Oh god, it feels good, Hinata moaned out as Naruto slammed into her again and again. Naruto grinned hearing Hinata's moans. He leaned over her, keeping his thrusts going as he lightly bit at her ear. Hinata turned her head back enough to get their lips meshed together as her love slammed into her. Your moans sound so damn hot, Naruto said, releasing a hand from her only to slap it across her ass. Hinata's eyes shot open as she moaned deeply. She liked that, a lot. Again, please, Hinata moaned, and Naruto happily obliged and cracked his hand over her as again. He timed his spanks perfectly. Each time he hit home, he would crack his palm against her now reddening ass. And Hinata would moan to the high heavens and beg for more. Hinata, I'm going to blow, Naruto groaned. Hinata moaned loudly as she hit her climax moments before him. Her walls clamped down around Naruto's manhood, pushing him over the edge. Aw fuck, Naruto grunted as he emptied himself into her. The two pulled apart slowly. Hinata laid over the table panting heavily while Naruto slumped back into a chair just as exhausted. Trying to keep up with all four girls was going to kill his SS. Oh Naruto, Hinata moaned lightly, slowly regaining herself. So what did you think? Naruto asked. It was amazing, but I think I like it softer, but I definitely want to do that again, Hinata said, standing slowly. Well, I'm happy to oblige any fantasies you have, Naruto said, putting his member away. Naruto walked through the roads of the hidden leaf. He had asked his girls to stay home. He wanted to do something special for them. So he had gone out and gotten each of them their own unique ring to wear. For Anko, he got her an onyx band in the shape of a snake with a ruby for its gem. Ino, he had gotten her a beautiful golden band with a fabulous diamond. For Ayame, he got her a stunning silver band with a hexagonal emerald. Finally, for Hinata, he had gotten her a platinum band with a wire-like design on it and a brilliant sapphire. Each ring set him back a surprisingly high amount of cash, but hell, he had the money. Thanks, Naruto said as he left the shop, leaving the shopkeeper confused on why he bought 4 rings. Naruto, could I talk to you? A voice asked as he put the rings into his coat pocket. He turned to see Shizune standing in few feet from him. Yeah, what's up? Naruto asked, smiling, still glowing from his extensively exhausting but fun morning. These contracts, you shouldn't force the girls to be you. You're stealing away their free will, Shizune said. You'd be quite wrong there. They have all the power, not me. They can leave if they want or stay if they want. All my contract really does, it allows me to check, make sure they come back from their missions in one piece. I don't force them to cook or clean, they do it because they want to be with me, Naruto replied, looking at Shizune. So if you wouldn't mind, please keep out of it. If you really want them to leave, talk to them, not me. Naruto was gone before she could say another word. Ayame sat at a table with Ino, Hinata and Anko. They all knew what they wanted to talk about but were unsure how to start. I think we should try to split it evenly, Ayame said nervously. She was hopelessly outmatched by the other 3. They were all ninjas and she was just a ramen cook in a small restaurant. That sounds right, but who gets when? Anko asked. I would like Saturdays, it's my day off, Ayame said. The other girls nodded, understanding her desire. Could I have Sunday? Hinata asked. I want Wednesdays, Ino said. I'd like Friday, Anko added. What about Mondays, Thursdays and Tuesdays? Ayame asked. What if he gets more girls? Ino asked. I won't stop him. I wouldn't have been able to be with him if he didn't get more, Hinata said. Sounds fair, Ayame said, standing up. The others knew she had to get ready for work. Oh, one exception should be birthdays or if Naruto asks for you, Anko added as Hinata stood up, leaving the room. She had a lunch with Kurenai, Shino and Kiba. Ino laid back onto the couch readying to take a nap while Anko had won the draw to make dinner. Naruto narrowly ducked a fist as he landed in the park. He knew he had been followed, but he hadn't expected Sakura to outright attack him. He easily dodged her attempts to hit him. He had grown in strength beyond what anyone knew after the war. When the Edo Tensei was released, all of Kurama's chakra was combined within him, thus making Kurama complete once more. It was as if he was watching Sakura in slow motion as she swung. Enough of this, Kurama shouted, clearly annoyed by the girl. Naruto agreed and caught Sakura's fully empowered fist and sustained no damage. Enough, Naruto shouted, causing everyone in the area to freeze in fear, including Sakura. What do you want? He asked, glaring at the girl who had been attacking him. What did you do to Ino? Sakura asked, regaining her composure and rage. Nothing other than love her, Naruto replied, releasing Sakura's fist. Ino's never liked you and now all she talks about is how much she loves you. You did something to her, Sakura argued. I did nothing, now leave me be. Naruto vanished. Anko reacted to the noise first. Naruto was home and very mad for some reason. Naruto-sama. Anko walked in to see him fuming, trying to calm himself. Fucking bitch tries to dig her way under my skin. I swear I'll tear her head from those pretty little shoulders. Naruto's voice growled. Anko could tell it was Kurama speaking, but Naruto wasn't trying to regain his control like she thought. Naruto-sama, Anko moved to him. The moment her hand touched him, he moved, pinning her to the wall. Don't. Not now, he growled. I'm here for you, Anko said, placing a hand on his face. He visibly relaxed as she touched him, another pair of arms wrapped around him. Anko looked to see Hinata had come to her aid. They both held him, trying to calm his rage. I'm sorry, Naruto spoke. His rage finally subsided as he let go of Anko. Anko smiled lightly and ran her hand down his chest. Her fingers ran over Hinata's hand, their eyes met and they both knew what they wanted to do. Hinata took one hand while Anko took his other. They lead him in unison to the bedroom. They were going to test his stamina. Could he keep up with them both? Naruto sat on his bed as the two girls danced for him, giving him a simultaneous strip-tease. Anko slowly pulled off Hinata's clothes while Hinata did the same to her. Their hands trailed over each other's bodies. Hinata glanced to see their effect on Naruto. He watched them unblinkingly, his eyes filled with lust as he licked his bottom lip. The two moved onto the bed, slowly inching towards him. Their hands ran up his legs as they crawled as sexily as they could. And damn, did it work for Naruto. He didn't know what he did to deserve this, but he was happy for it. That was a very little dance, Naruto said as he beckoned Hinata further up. Hinata obeyed and their lips meshed together. Anko grinned. They were busy, that meant she could turn her attention to her favorite part of him. Anko undid Naruto's belt and quickly started to give her attention to Naruto's manhood. You started without me, a voice said. Naruto looked to see Ayame stripping down to join him. He moved Hinata to one side of him, letting Ayame join on the other side. Maybe you should get a few shadow clones to help you out, Anko said, sliding her tongue up his length. Bah, I got this, Naruto grinned, sliding a hand down both Ayame's and Hinata's bodies, aiming for their PSSIES. His hands ran over their entrances, gently rubbing them. Both girls started to quiver and moan from his touch. The palm of his hand rubbed and grinded against their clits. Ah, Naruto, Hinata moaned as he slid 2 fingers into her. Ayame on the other hand got 3. She moaned loudly, her head back as her moan echoed out. Anko moaned lightly onto Naruto's COC as she started to rub herself as she soused on her beloved orange, master. Hinata leaned in again, pressing her lips to Naruto's again. Little did the four know that they had an unknown spectator. Shizune walked towards Anko's home, planning on talking to the girls. She wanted to make sure they were all happy with him. She just wasn't sure it was possible for one young man to keep 4 women completely happy. She reached Anko's home and froze, feeling immense chakra pouring from the house. She shook lightly, knowing it was the Kyuubi's chakra. She cautiously approached a window to see Naruto pinning Anko to the wall. Anko didn't look afraid, instead her hand cupped his cheek. She looked at him with love. A second pair of arms capsuled his body. Hinata was behind him now, holding fast to him. After a few moments, Naruto's rage subsided. The two girls moved after looking at each other. They took his hands and led him into the bedroom. Shizune moved to watch. She was having trouble believing what she was seeing. Anko and Hinata were stripping each other. The two moved on Naruto. They both trailed their hands up his body. Oh my god, Shizune watched as Ayame joined in and the 3 sunk into their loving. Naruto fingered Hinata and Ayame while Anko soused him off. Naruto smiled as he made the 2 girls moan over and over. Hinata pressed herself against him. Her fingers ran over his bare chest, stopping once her hand met Ayame's. Their fingers intertwined. Naruto whispered something into Hinata's ear, causing her to blush and nod. Hinata pulled Ayame to her, pressing their lips together. Ayame quickly fell into their kiss. Shizune bit her lip as she watched. This was the hottest thing she had ever watched. Naruto, I want it first, Ayame begged. Naruto looked to Hinata and Anko, whom both conceded to Ayame as she was the newest. Okay, Ayame, Naruto said, watching her mount him. She moaned deeply as his COC penetrated her. Ayame quickly started to ride him, completely lost in the lust almost instantly. Shizune started to breath faster as she watched. She was getting hot, really hot. She unknowingly started to rub herself as she watched Naruto start thrusting upwards into Ayame. Ayame moaned loudly, begging for him to fuck her harder and harder. Hinata moved in, relocking her lips against Ayame, giving Naruto a nice show. Ayame shoved her tongue into Hinata's mouth, deeply enjoying their kisses. Anko moaned out, gaining their attention. the two glanced to see Anko over Naruto's face getting tongued. Oh god, Naruto. Anko moaned as Naruto easily pushed her to her first climax with his Togun. Naruto. Ayame screamed out as he kicked his upwards thrusts into high gear. Hinata started to trail her kisses down Ayame's body. She kissed down her neck over her brias and down to her womanhood. Ayame's moan grew even louder, feeling Hinata starting to lick at her clee. More, oh god, more, Ayame begged. Naruto gave Anko a light slap, letting her know he wanted up. Anko moved off him with weak legs. She was still reeling for her orgasm. Ayame didn't have time to register the change. She just knew she was suddenly on her back and Naruto was slamming into her with everything she had. She loved every second of it. Hinata had taken the initiative and crawled over Ayame. Give her a kiss. Naruto grinned, seeing Hinata blush. She never thought she would willingly move over and have another girl start eating her out. Ayame grinned and took to licking and fingering the puss in her face. Anko moved in her body against Naruto. He moved his hand to her puss, sliding 2 fingers in. Here it comes, Ayame. Naruto groaned as he ready to blow. Wait, I want some, Anko said. So do I, Hinata said. Naruto grinned wickedly as an idea came to his mind. Line up, ladies, Naruto said, sliding out of Ayame. The three moved, sitting together, their mouths open and tongues out, waiting for their reward. Naruto took a moment, slapping his dick against each of their faces a few times before she started to jerk himself to his eruption. Naruto, the three said in unison. That was it for him. Naruto came, spraying his cum over their faces. As always, he came a ton and gave all three a good amount. He laid back and watching as the three started to kiss and lick up his cum. Naruto glanced, knowing they were being watched. He gave a nod to Anko, whom had also noticed it. She moved before their peeping Tom noticed. Shizune. Naruto said in shock, seeing the woman. I can explain, Shizune said. Naruto paused for a moment, then beckoned Ayame and Hinata to him. He whispered into their ears, getting them to smile and nod. No need, I know what you were doing, so why don't you take the lead? Naruto offered. What? Shizune asked in shock. You were touching yourself out there. Why don't you go all the way? Naruto said. Shizune bit her lip as she looked at Naruto hard. COC. She didn't want to admit, but she did want to ride him. It's really fun, Ayame said lustfully, stroking Naruto slowly, making sure to keep him erect. Better than anyone you'll ever find, Anko said into Shizune's ear. That was the last straw for Shizune. She started to move, feeling Anko pull off her robe. Naruto smiled, seeing her wet panties. Once she was in range, he quickly tore them from her. You won't need those, Naruto smiled as she bit her lip while climbing over him. Shizune gasped, feeling Anko slid her hand down her body. Naruto smiled lightly, seeing Shizune squirm under Anko's fingers. Do you want him? Anko asked, whispering into Shizune's ear. Yes, Shizune said lightly. How badly do you want him? Ayame asked, moving into caressing her brias. I don't know, I just need it, Shizune replied. Her mind was going blank from lust and he hadn't even been penetrated yet. That doesn't work, he's ours. If you want it, you have to beg us to let you have it, Hinata said, surprising the others with her possessiveness of Naruto's COC. Please, I want to be fucked, Shizune said, trying to move closer to Naruto. Anko grinned, holding her in place. She lightly bit her ear while Ayame started sousing at her brias. Shizune whimpered she was lost. She wanted him and they wouldn't let her. Please let me fuck him, Shizune begged. Naruto gave a nod and the three moved away. Shizune crawled over Naruto, rubbing her womanhood over Naruto's COC. Naruto laid back and let her have the reins, letting her understand this was all her. Shizune lightly grabbed Naruto's COC, lined him up and slid down. She moaned loudly as his thickness sunk into her kneed cunt. You're one of us now, Ayame said, kissing Shizune's cheek. Shizune nodded and started to ride him. She had already lost control of his. Shizune panted as she rode him. Anko had moved behind her, helping her ride him. Anko's hands moved over her body. One hand groped her brias while the other moved south. Naruto gulped lightly, watching Ayame and Hinata making out. They were really starting to like each other. Naruto smiled and beckoned them over. They didn't hesitate and moved to him. Keep going, but I want your puss, Naruto said, giving Hinata a light spank. Hinata nodded and moved over him, letting him lick her. Ayame smiled and sat on his chest so she could still have good access to her new friend. Ah Naruto, Shizune moaned as she climaxed onto his COC. Naruto groaned but managed to hold off. Hinata and Ayame continued to kiss lustfully over Naruto. Hinata's moans seemed to echo through Ayame, causing her to moan right back. Give it to her Naruto-sama, Anko said, lightly kissing and biting at Shizune's neck. Ayame and Hinata moaned in approval, at least that what Naruto thought they did, and he gave, interrupting into Shizune. Shizune laid on Naruto right side with Anko behind her, she still groped her bria lightly. Naruto, can I be one of your girls? Shizune asked. Think about it, I don't want you making that decision in an ecstasy high, Naruto said. I'm not, I really want to be with you, Shizune said, kissing his chest. Then yes, of course you can, Naruto replied, getting a happy smile from Shizune. Sakura growled as she walked through the streets of Konoha. She didn't like that Naruto just brushed her off and she was going to give him a piece of her mind. She reached Naruto's apartment and stopped. She had forgotten that he didn't live there anymore. She turned to leave when a moan caught her ear. She knew that was Ino's voice, and it was inside Naruto's old apartment. She grabbed the handle and turned the knob. Sure enough, Naruto and Ino were inside and lustfully fucking. Ino was on all fours, taking it like a bitch in heat. Ino, Sakura said in shock. The two stopped hearing Sakura's voice. Ino smiled at her friend. Hey Sakura, you wanna take a whack at him? Ino asked. In a way, Sakura said, clenching her fist. Oh come on, his COC is so damn good, Ino said, pushing back against Naruto. What happened to you? Sakura asked. I fell in love with him. I wish I had seen how great of a guy he was earlier, and I'm not talking about SX, I mean him, Ino said, pulling away. Yeah right, you're a say slave, Sakura replied. No she's not, I broke all the contracts, Naruto said, causing Ino to freeze. What? Ino asked. When Ayame became mine I decide that you girls should have full freedom like she would and broke the contracts, Naruto replied. So the last month all four of us have been fucking you and the contracts weren't making us lustful towards you? Ino asked. Nope. That was all you, Naruto smiled. Ino moved to him, kissing him lovingly. I love you Naruto, Ino said, knowing she truly meant it now. And I you, Naruto replied. I don't believe you, you'd never fall for Naruto, Sakura replied. Shut up. Either leave us alone for good, or fuck us, Ino smiled. Sakura took a step back. She didn't want to admit she had wanted him since he had beaten pain but never told him. Naruto smiled, seeing her take a step back. Told you, she's still all Sasuke-kun, Naruto said, rolling his eyes before for he pulled Ino close to him. Yeah but Sasuke isn't here, you are, Ino smiled. Sakura stood unable to decide what she wanted to do. Yes, she still wanted Sasuke, but he had taken up wandering but supposedly was still loyal to the leaf now. Fine. Sakura gave in, she was overly stressed so S*X could help her relieve some of that. Really? Then strip and give Naruto a blowjob, Ino said, stroking Naruto lightly. I don't do blowjobs, tittuk, handjobs or anal. You can have my puss and that's it, Sakura replied. I say fuck her until her mind breaks, Kurama's voice echoed out. Naruto smiled and nodded. Sakura assumed he had agreed, and he had to Kurama. He was done with Sakura. All the abuse, neglect and outright bitchiness was going to bite her in the ass now. Naruto decided that she deserved this. Sakura stripped out of her cloths and walked over. Naruto whispered in Ino's ear, getting her to nod and move off the bed. Let's just get this over with, I could use to blow off some steam, Sakura said, annoying Naruto even more. The last thing he was going to be was stress relief. No, he was going give her the fucking of a lifetime. Sakura laid and spread her legs. She had completely taken emotion out of S*X. Now Naruto was going to fuck her like the whore she was acting like. Naruto lined up and looked to Sakura, who gave him a nod. A grin cracked over his face and in one shove he completely buried himself into Sakura's puss. Ow, fuck, too much at once, Sakura punched him. Hey, I don't like being used for stress relief, so I am going to fuck you until you understand why you shouldn't piss me off, Naruto growled and started to fuck her. Sakura screamed in pain as he brutally fucked her. Naruto is raping me, Sakura thought, unable to remove him. Oh, and before you think you can get him in trouble. Remember you agreed, and also just walked into Naruto's house, you're trespassing, Ino whispered as Naruto slammed into her. Stop. Please, I'm sorry, Sakura cried out. It's okay, Sakura, it only hurts at first, give it a few and you'll be begging for his big fat coc, Ino said, kissing Naruto. And Ino was right. Before Sakura knew it, the pain was gone and an abundance of pleasure had taken its place. She couldn't hold back her moans any longer. The first one escaped her lips and Ino started to laugh. I told you, he's the best, Ino replied, kissing Naruto. Sakura clenched her teeth. She didn't want to give him the pleasure of knowing she was enjoying herself. God, gently please, Sakura begged. No, you don't want that. Naruto's gentle fuck is mind obliterating, Ino warned. Gentle please, Sakura screamed, ignoring Ino. Have it your way, Naruto replied. His thrusts slowed to a crawl, but somehow the pleasure went through the roof. His slow thrusts hit everywhere inside her. Sakura couldn't stop her moans. She fell into a sea of euphoric ecstasy and drowned in desire. Oh God, Naruto, Sakura moaned out. In just a few thrusts he pushed her over the edge. She couldn't believe such a slow pace shattered away her mind. She was going completely blank. Her hands gripped the sheets of the bed while her legs hooked around his waist. Don't stop. Never stop, Sakura begged. All of her desires seemed to melt away underneath Naruto. He lightly kissed at her neck while his hands groped and caressed her breasts, paying special attention to her nipples. He rolled her stiffened nipples under his thumb while he lightly bit and kissing from her chin to her collar. Told you, you're going to break and become useless, Ino said, now watching and touching herself as Naruto pushed Sakura to climax after climax. Her walls tightly gripped Naruto, doing everything to get him off, but he seemed immune. Come in me please, Sakura begged. She needed to feel his seed inside of her. Sorry, but at my gentler pace it takes forever for me to come, Naruto replied, keeping his slow and filling thrusts going. He didn't pick up his pace no matter how badly Sakura begged for him to. Now, he was set on shattering her mind. And he was getting close. Sakura didn't have much left. She could hardly put two and two together anymore. The only thing that mattered was getting Naruto's cum. Please, I want your cum, please, Sakura begged and begged. Oh, take some pity on her and give it to her, Ino said as she climaxed. She hated using her fingers now. They never did enough compared to her well-hung love. Naruto gave her a nod and picked up his pace. He went from his slow pleasure-filled thrusts to his brutal vulgar fucking thrusts and caused Sakura to scream in pleasure. You want it, here it comes, Naruto replied, blowing into Sakura. Her eyes rolled back and darkness overtook her. She passed out the instant his seed hit her womb. Tsunade sat behind her desk, her hand over her forehead. Shizune hadn't returned from getting tea. Tsunade knew what she had really done and it must have backfired. She was now probably going to be one of Naruto's many girls now. Just like she knew Sakura was, she had been told of a noise complaint in Naruto's old apartment and that Sakura was last seen around there. He's going to need a bigger house, Tsunade joked, then mentally slapped herself. I need to cut this off, she added, trying to think of a way. The idea hit her like a brick. She would take him away from his women and take him with her to the Cage Summit meeting that was now held yearly after the Chunin exams. He wouldn't be able to shit there. None of the women there would be weak to the heroic presence he had here. Yup, that will work, Tsunade grinned, knowing that's just what she would do. Then she lowered her head. That's still 2 weeks away. How many more women would he subdue by then? Maybe even she would slip up if she wasn't careful. Then there was the fact that the Cage Summit could do the exact opposite. The thought of Naruto nailing the Mizukage or one of the Raikage's female followers could be potentially catastrophic. Shit, what am I going to do? Tsunade said, dropping her head to her desk. Naruto dropped onto his couch holding his arm. Fucking hell, Tsunade has been giving me a shit ton of missions lately, Naruto thought as he picked up a newspaper, looking over it. Welcome home, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, stepping into the room. Hey Hinata, come here, Naruto beckoned her over. She obeyed and moved to his side. Is there something you'd like? Hinata asked. Actually, I have something for you, Naruto said, pulling out a small velvet case. A little reminder that you're mine, he added, handing her the box. Oh my, Hinata said, opening the box, seeing a platinum-banded ring with an immaculate sapphire in it. It's beautiful. Naruto took the ring, sliding it over her right ring finger. It fit perfectly. I'm glad you liked it. Naruto leaned in, kissing her cheek. I love it. Now I will always have you with me, Hinata said, curling up on his side. I've gotten one for all of you, Naruto replied. I know, you don't play favorites, Hinata said. On the contrary, I have my favorite, Naruto replied. Really? Hinata asked. You? Naruto whispered into her ear. You're just saying that, Hinata replied. Ask Ino or Anko, they've both asked me and I told them, Naruto said, kissing her cheek. I love you, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, resting her head on his shoulder. Her eyes trailed over to the newspaper. What were you reading? Hinata felt overly intrigued about it. New house. We are out of space with Sakura and Shizune moving in. I was thinking about a clan home since I have an egregious amount of money now, Naruto said. Really, how much? Hinata asked. More than 6 Hyuga clans, Naruto replied. Hinata's jaw went slack. The Hyuga were the richest clan in all 5 hidden villages, and Naruto had more than 6 times their amount. That's not possible, Hinata said, unable to believe him. Well, the Namikaze, my father's clan, along with the Uzumaki clan's wealth were combined upon my parents' marriage then. Then it all funneled to me when they passed away. Add almost 20 years of interest and the unneeded reward for defeating Pain and the Akatsuki, and then there is the reward for bringing down Madara and Obito during the war. All 5 villages felt a need to give me something. So instead of money from the leaf, I asked for a clan home to be made for the future. Unfortunately, it's not done yet, so we can't move in, Naruto explained. So you're really that rich? Hinata asked, still unable to believe it. Easily. All 7 of us could retire and never work a day again, and we could still live off the interest I make now, if we don't go on crazy spending sprees, Naruto explained, almost laughing. That just doesn't seem possible, Hinata said. Naruto smiled, sliding an arm around Hinata. Forget about it, okay? Just live in this moment, Naruto said, pulling Hinata into his arms. Hinata giggled lightly, knowing exactly what they both wanted at the moment. Her hand went to his pants, stroking him through the fabric. I was hoping I would get some, Hinata said, blushing. All you ever have to do is ask, Naruto said, sliding a hand to the back of Hinata's neck, pulling her into a deep kiss. Hinata moved her free hand to the zipper of his jacket, desperate to remove his cloths. The two stopped when they heard moaning coming from the next room. Sounds like Ayame. Sakura and Ino are having fun again, Naruto said, laughing lightly at how craved Sakura had become. Forget about them, it's my turn, Hinata said, freeing his member in an instant. Naruto grinned and flipped Hinata down, pinning her under him. God, you're so beautiful and always horny, just like the others, Naruto whispered into her ear before sliding his hand into her pants, rubbing over her mound. Ah, Naruto-kun, Hinata moaned. As much as you love saying that, please just call me Naruto, Naruto said, sliding a finger into her. Ah, Naruto. Hinata moaned out, her back starting to arch into his chest. Hinata's body was way too easy for Naruto to manipulate. She gave complete control to him every time they made love. You just love giving in to me, don't you? Naruto asked. Yes, I love how it feels, Hinata moaned. Her body, heart, mind and soul all belonged to Naruto. She was nothing without him. Tell me what you want most, Naruto asked, filling her with a second finger. No, too soon, Hinata moaned, trying to hid her face. Nothing is too soon, Naruto replied. I want your child, Hinata said, blushing heavily. So you want to stop taking the pill? Naruto asked, having had all his girls taking every precaution to avoid pregnancies. Yes, I want your child, Hinata blushed. Let me think about it. If I decide to have kids, I'll let you have my first, Naruto replied. Okay, Hinata moaned. Naruto never stopped fingering her through their whole conversation. I've been waiting this for a while, Naruto said, pulling his finger out of her and out of her pants to see his fingers were soaked. He licked his fingers, tasting Hinata before he moved to the main course. Hinata blushed, watching Naruto lick his fingers that were soaked in her juices. Naruto's hand took little time in removing her cloths as he moved down her body. The first touch of his tongue on her needy puss sent Hinata over her cliff. Now Hinata, I thought we had been teaching you restraint, Naruto said, looking up at her. I can't help it. It's been weeks. All of us are horny, Hinata replied as she gripped onto the sofa, feeling Naruto's tongue start working on her again. Naruto went from inexperienced to a master of SX in such a short time. Hinata's body reacted to every touch and kiss, her back arched, her toes curled, her nails dug into the sofa, her eye rolled back, her breathing became hoarse and ragged. She couldn't hide how hot and bothered Naruto could make her in just a few kisses or with a finger or two. I think you're nice and ready now, Naruto said, moving back up her body, kissing her softly as he moved. But I want to. Naruto silenced her with a kiss, the remnants of her juices on his lips. His member poked at her aching entrance. Next time, Naruto said, pulling back to line himself up. How would you like it today? I want to pass out, Hinata said, biting her lip. I thought you would. Naruto grinned, knowing Hinata was the only one that could take his slow pleasurable SX and not have worry about mentally breaking like Sakura did. Naruto ran his hands over Hinata's body, caressing her as she spread her legs. Naruto undid his pants, freeing his member. Hinata bit her lip as he lined himself up. He slowly pushed into Hinata, her walls coiled around him. Ah, Naruto, Hinata moaned, feeling her walls stretch to accommodate her lover's size. Naruto started his slow, passionate thrusts. He moved his hands to her legs, holding behind her knees, and he moved. Hinata's hands tightly clung to the cushions of the couch as his brutally euphoric pleasure pulsed through her body. How does he do this? Hinata wondered as her eyes rolled back and her moans started to echo out. Her breathing picked up as she sunk into her lust. Naruto leaned in, meshing his lips together with hers. Damn, Hinata, you're always so tight, Naruto said, resisting his urge to lose himself and roughly fuck her. She's not a yame. Gently, Naruto, Naruto mentally yelled at himself. Naruto, I can't last, Hinata cried out as her hands moved to his body. She couldn't hold back even if she tried. Naruto smiled and gave her one more thrust, knocking her past her limit, and with a long loud moan Hinata came. Naruto moved his lips to her neck as he continued to slowly thrust into her. Hinata's body trembled, still coming down from her climax. She knew she wouldn't be able to last much long with how good Naruto was at hitting her spots just right. Hinata, Naruto grunted. Hinata wrapped her arms around his neck as his pace picked up slightly. Naruto wasn't going to last much longer. Hinata's body was just too damn good. Oh, Naruto, Hinata cried out, feeling Naruto's COC pulsing inside of her. Her moans echoed through the house as their passionate moment was quickly becoming a lusty fuck. Hinata, Naruto shouted as he burst deep into Hinata. Hinata tightened her arms around Naruto as she came again, unable to do anything. Her entire body seized up as she smashed headlong through her orgasm. Her body went limp as she was finally able to relax. So good, Hinata replied, resting her head against the couch. Naruto leaned in and gave her a light kiss, letting her drift off. He smiled lightly as he covered her and stood to see Anko in the doorway. A slow smile came to Naruto's face as he moved towards her. Her back was planted against the shower wall, with his hands on hers and his COC buried in her cunt. The shower was her favorite place in the entire village to ride him. Neither of them knew why it made them both so hot for each other. Just the thought of their soaked bodies rubbing against each other's drove her wild with desire. She moaned loudly as his hands gripped her as more and he pumped into her with everything he had. More, Anko cried out as Naruto slammed into her welcoming folds. She was just as bad a Hinata. It had been over a week since any of his girls had gotten some of his cum. He knew for sure Sakura was going to be going mad by the time he got to her, and it was perfect. He loved to see the once high and mighty, I only want Sasuke, demeanor of Sakura fail as she became increasingly lustful for Naruto's COC and cum. God, I love hearing you cry out my name, Naruto said, hearing Anko begging for more with each thrust. Don't stop, more. Anko cried out, her hands entangled in his hair. I didn't plan on stopping, Naruto replied, picking up his pace even more. The sounds of their soaked bodies slapping together echoed through the entire bathroom and more. Anko tightened her legs around his waist, trying to keep him completely buried inside of her. I'm going to cum with me, Anko begged. I'm at my limit too, Naruto grunted as he pumped up into with everything he had. With two final hard thrusts he felt Anko cum and burst into her folds. Anko slid down the wall slightly before Naruto pulled back and turned her around. Oh yes. Fuck my ass. Anko knew that was his goal and she loved it. Naruto smiled as he lined up and buried himself in her as with one thrust. Anko moaned loudly, her back arched as her love started to move. Naruto grabbed Anko's wrists and pulled her back slightly as he started to thrust harder. Anko's eyes rolled back as she smashed through her limit again. Naruto. Anko screamed out, making Naruto stop as her body clamped down. Fuck Anko. Naruto grunted, nearly bursting from her tightness. Anko slowly came down from her ecstasy high as her mind slowly cleared. Oh Naruto, Anko said weakly. Naruto pulled her back, pushing their bodies together. Anko leaned back, letting her body rest in his arms. Naruto kissed at Anko's neck as his started to move again. Anko bit her lip, feeling Naruto's manhood moving inside her. I wasn't done yet. Naruto kissed her neck again and he picked up his pace. Naruto knew he wouldn't last very long, but he wasn't leaving the shower without finishing. Naruto released her wrists and moved his hands around her waist and up to her breast. Naruto, Anko moaned, feeling his COC pulsing inside her. Naruto gave another kiss to her neck as he burst inside of her. Anko moaned deeply, feeling Naruto slowly pull out of her. You women are going to be the death of me, Naruto said, kissing her neck once more. Like you'd have us any other way. Anko turned and kissed her love. Naruto walked through the halls of the Hokage's office. He figured Tsunade was going to send him on yet another mission. It was like she was trying to force him and his girls apart. Like that was possible. They wanted to be with him. He wasn't forcing any of them to stay. You summoned me, Granny. Naruto stepped in to see Tsunade. Yes, I've decided that you'll be joining me when I go to the Cage Summit later this week, Tsunade said, placing a folder down. Sweet, it'll be cool to see what Gaara's been up to, Naruto said, smiling. You are not to bring any of your women with you, Tsunade said quickly. Naruto almost chuckled to himself as he looked over to Shizune. Oh, Shizune isn't going to come, Naruto said, making Shizune blush. Tsunade rubbed her brow and looked at Shizune. Please tell me he's joking. You aren't actually one of his girls, are you? Tsunade asked, hoping her suspicions weren't true. I am. I've already moved in with him. Shizune blushed but didn't seem ashamed at all. Fine, but there will be no SX between you two during the summit, understood? Tsunade asked with a glare. Yes, ma'am, Naruto said, rolling his eyes. Now if you don't mind, I'm going to go pack. Tsunade stood, ushering the two out. Meet back here after she leaves, Naruto whispered to Shizune as they left. Shizune blushed and bit her lip. What was he planning? He wouldn't, Shizune thought as Naruto grinned at her. Shizune stepped into the Hokage's office. She knew Tsunade was out for the night. She stopped when she saw Naruto sitting behind Tsunade's desk. You shouldn't be sitting there, Shizune said. Then how can you give me a blowjob under the desk? Naruto asked, remembering Shizune saying she wanted to have say in an office just so she could do certain things. You're playing with me fantasies, Shizune said, biting her lip. Come and get it, Naruto grinned. Shizune moved to him while licking her lips. She paused for a moment, then dropped to her knees in front of him. Naruto sat back and watched her pull out his already hard COC and quickly wrapped her lips around his head. Shizune's head started to bob, working over Naruto's thickness. Her tongue ran along his length. She could feel his head hitting the back of her throat. Shizune moaned deeply, feeling Naruto's COC pumping into her mouth and throat. His COC would throb each time she ran her tongue over his head. So good, Shizune thought as she eagerly started to suck faster. Shizune pulled out of her top, letting it catch at her belt. Naruto smiled, seeing she obeyed him and didn't wear a bra anymore. Shizune pulled off his COK and wrapped his hot COC between her breasts. Her tongue would run over his head each time she moved down his COC. Oh yeah, keep going, Shizune, Naruto moaned as he ran his hand into her hair. His fingers became tangled in her black locks and he forced her lips around his COC. Shizune moaned deeply as she soused. She loved when he abused her throat. Here it comes, Naruto moaned as he burst into her mouth. Shizune gulped down every thick rope of cum he gave her. How do you want it next? Shizune asked, licking her lips. Bend over the desk, Naruto commanded. Shizune smiled and moved into the position herself to Naruto's liking. Naruto ran his hand over her as a smile came to his face as he felt what belonged to him. No panties, Naruto said, starting to hike up her robe. None of us do. You told us you didn't want us to unless we were on our period, Shizune said. That I did. What a good girl, Naruto replied, rubbing his coc between her legs. I'll let you pick which hole I fuck, Naruto said as he rubbed his hand over her ass. Naruto, Shizune moaned. She knew what she wanted, but she didn't like talking dirty. Come on, I know you don't like it, but it sounds so sexy when you do, Naruto said, running hands up her body to grope her ample breasts. Oh please Naruto, you ck my sooty puss, the puss that belongs to you and you alone, Shizune moaned as his fingers lightly pinched her nippus. That's my girl, Naruto pushed himself into her. Shizune moaned loudly as her body coiled around his coc. Naruto stopped as he reached base inside of her. Hard please Naruto, please fuck me sooty puss hard, Shizune moaned, gripping the table as she waited for his coc to slam into her. As you wish, Naruto replied, taking a hold of her. Naruto pulled most of the way out and slammed deep into her. Shizune threw her head back as she climaxed. You always come right when I slam in, Naruto grinned and he started to roughly fuck Shizune. Shizune couldn't hold her voice back and let her moans echo out. Their bodies started to roughly slam into each other as Naruto pumped into her. Naruto leaned over her as he started to grin at the end of each thrust. Oh Naruto! Shizune screamed as their sweat-soaked bodies slapped together. Shizune gripped the table as she climaxed a second time. Naruto gritted his teeth as her walls tightly gripped his coc. He ran his hands from her waist to her breasts again and started to grope her again. I can't last, Naruto groaned as he neared his limit. Shizune moaned and leaned back against her lover. Their bodies pressed together as Naruto's hands left her breasts and wrapped around her stomach and their lips found each other's. Oh God, please fill me up, Shizune moaned as her eyes rolled back. Naruto rather happily complied as he burst into her hungry cunt. Naruto dropped back into the Hokage's chair, his still hard coc oozed the last bit of his seed. Shizune turned and dropped to her knees again. She didn't hesitate to wrap her lips around his coc and suck him down. Her tongue ran over his coc, cleaning him. Good girl, clean my coc, Naruto said, resting his head back. Shizune pulled off after she thoroughly cleaned her master's coc. We have to go, Tsunade-sama would be furious if she found out in here, Shizune said, putting her arms back in her sleeves and adjusted her robe. I guess, I have some place to go, Naruto said, kissing Shizune's cheek before he left via the window. Shizune replaced everything that had been bumped or otherwise moved in their loving before she left herself. Hinata stood above the hot springs watching several women bathing as she waited for Naruto. She had almost forgotten about tonight. She was hoping Naruto would be willing to add a special person to his harem, someone very important to her. Hey Hinata, Naruto's came as a whisper as his hands wrapped around her. Naruto, Hinata leaned back in his arms. What did you want me to do here? Naruto asked, looking down to see the women in the bath. He couldn't hide a grin as he saw Ino, Tenten, Sakura, Kurenai, Anko, and Shizune. You could lay claim to one of those two, Kurama's voice echoed. I plan to, Naruto replied as he kissed Hinata's neck. I have a secret to tell you, Hinata said. Ooh kinky, what is it? Naruto asked. Yuhi-sensei has a certain fetish. She told me how she did it until she met Sarutobi-senpai, Hinata started to explain. She has since started it back up, Hinata added. So it's Suel, Naruto replied, knowing she wouldn't have betrayed Asuma, but he died a few years ago and she was in her prime. The spa is a hidden glory hole, Hinata said, making Naruto know exactly what her fetish was. She likes glory holes Naruto asked. I caught her once, she begged me not to tell, I know she's still doing it, Hinata said as Naruto ran his hands over her body. So you want me to be her next surprise visit? Naruto asked. She has her back against the hole, she stays the latest. If it's you, I would bet you could end up swinging her into full say and getting her to join us, Hinata explained. Why do you want Kurenai with us? Naruto asked. She's been alone since Sarutobi-senpai died. I know she cries herself to sleep most nights. She needs to be happy again, Hinata said, turning to face Naruto. Okay, I'll see what I can do, Naruto smiled, kissing Hinata's forehead. The night dwindled and sure enough Kurenai was alone in the spa. She was hoping one of the few people who knew about the hole would use it tonight. She needed a COC good and hard. Her prayers were answered when the soft head of a COC pushed against her back. Kurenai bit her lip as she turned to see the impressive COC come through the hole. It barely fit and was easily one of the biggest she had ever seen. Kurenai lowered herself and kissed the head. She took a light gulp and wrapped her lips around the thickness. Her lust quickly overtook her and she started to suck at the COC with everything she had. Her hands jerked his shaft as her tongue ran around his head. She heard a low groan from the other side of the wall. She smiled lightly knowing he was enjoying her mouth and hands. She started to engulf his COC. She took his entire length, feeling his COC pulsing in her throat. Kurenai readied herself, then knocked lightly on the wall, telling the man to start thrusting. He understood and started to throat fuck her with crazy speed. Her body screamed for more as his COC pumped into her mouth. This is bad, I waited too long, this won't be enough, Kurenai thought as the COC suddenly burst, shooting seed straight into her stomach. She started to feel lightheaded as she ran low on air. The COC slowly pulled out, letting her breath once more. The man tapped lightly on the wall as if asking whether she was okay or not. Kurenai finished clearing her mouth and spoke through the hole. I need more, please put it back in, Kurenai said, hoping the man could go again. Once again her prayers were answered and his hard COC came through the hole again. Kurenai removed her towel and got on all fours. She lined herself up and impaled herself on his COC. She was rewarded with an instant groan from the other side of the wall. Both bodies started to move. Kurenai wanted to break the one promise she had made herself when she started this. Never ask who it is. I promised myself I would keep it secret, but I've never actually had Southeast this way, Kurenai thought as she felt the COC hit her spot and force a long moan from her. Who are you? Kurenai asked. She needed to know whose COC she was falling in love with, the COC she was started to need. You first, the voice replied. Kurenai Yuhi. She spoke and the COC suddenly stopped. Yuhi senpai. The voice asked. Shit, he knows me. Kurenai panicked. The COC started to pull out, making Kurenai regret speaking. She yelped when the COC slammed back into her with full force. I've wanted to do this to you for so long, the voice said as his pace picked up. Who are you? Kurenai managed to ask as she hit her climax like a freight train. Almost there. The voice groaned as Kurenai's eyes widened. The COC erupted into her, filling her wanting puss. Before she could ask again, the COC was gone, along with her hope of finding out who was so easily pleasured her. It really was you, a voice said from the doorway. Kurenai's jaw might as well have smashed into the ground. There stood the owner of the magical COC that she wanted. Naruto Uzumaki and his easily foot-long COC. Kurenai bit her lip as she looked at Naruto. Hinata. Kurenai spoke, knowing she had been set up. Are you mad? Naruto asked, figuring she would freak and never forgive him or Hinata. Her intentions were good, and you are too, and I really want more, Kurenai said, moving to display her body to Naruto. If you do a good job, I forgive, maybe even join that little harem of yours, Kurenai added, beckoning Naruto over. Is that a challenge? Naruto asked as his COC throbbed. No more talk. Get over here, Kurenai said as Naruto walked over and lowered himself so he was over Kurenai. Their bodies lightly pressed together as Naruto pushed his COC into her. Kurenai moaned loudly, feeling Naruto's COC re-enter her. I'll make you beg for more, Naruto whispered as he started to kiss her neck. Kurenai's body reacted in spades to Naruto's affection. Her legs wrapped around his waist and he slowly moved in and out of her. Her hands hooked onto his back and her nails started to dig as she rode the waves of pleasure his COC gave her. Faster, Kurenai commanded as she lightly bit at Naruto's neck. Naruto grunted as her nails and teeth bit his flesh. It hurt but oddly felt good at the same time. It encouraged him to pick up his pace and make her beg for it. And beg for it she did. Kurenai couldn't hold back her need for him very long, or at all for that matter. She crumbled almost instantly and stared to beg for his COC. She needed him. He was making her feel alive again. The hole in her heart was filled with desire for the young blonde. Naruto. Kurenai cried out as they heard a small eep. They both looked to see Tenten frozen in shock. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Naruto, the guy who she knew to have like 5 to 6 girls fawning for him, was balls deep in Kurenai, and damn it was he hung. Tenten turned and ran out before she did or said something that would get her screwed, in more ways than one. Naruto looked at Kurenai, whom bit her lip. Her legs were still tightly wrapped around his waist and her nails still dug into his back. Naruto shrugged and started to pump once more. Kurenai resumed her moaning and begging. So who won? Naruto asked as he pumped in. Naruto. Naruto wins. Please, I want more. Kurenai pleaded, and Naruto obeyed and let himself loose inside of her. With one final deep long moan, Kurenai smashed through her climax and went limp underneath Naruto. You are so moving. In with me once my clan home is done. Don't worry, little Asuma can come too, Naruto said, kissing Kurenai's cheek. Really, you won't mind Hiruzen's presence? Kurenai asked. Hiruzen? You named him after the third? Naruto asked as he pulled out. Asuma wanted me to. I kept saying no, Kurenai said. That's sweet. And no, I won't mind, Naruto said as he stood. Now I have to pack. Tsunade wants me to go to the cage's summit with her, Naruto said. Kurenai bit her lip and smiled. She needed to thank Hinata for this. She felt wanted and loved again. Naruto grinned like an idiot as he walked along a road. Sure, he had agreed he wouldn't have say with Shizunai all while they were there. But that didn't mean he couldn't have some fun with the women there, like Mayor Tamari, or maybe Karui. I like that idea, Kurama joked. Which one? Naruto asked back. The Cloud Girl. It would be a little pay back, say, for beating you like a rented mule, Kurama cackled. Oh, thanks for that, Naruto said, rolling his eyes. Is something wrong? Shizune asked as she looked at Naruto. Oh, just that the cage summit is over a month long and I don't get to have my cute little Shizune while I'm there, Naruto said, winking at Shizune. Enough, you two, Tsunade said, forcing the two apart before they could start anything. You're just jealous. I could give you some if you want it, Naruto grinned, watching Tsunade's hand clench. If you want to end up in the ground, please try it, Tsunade growled. Naruto shot towards her. His chakra shroud overtook him. He reached Tsunade before she could react. His hands ran from leg to shoulder, then to her breast, while his lip gently pressed against her neck. Just a little touch. Naruto moved past and took off down the road. Tsunade took off after him, her fists alight with chakra. Shizune quickly followed after her, trying her best to keep up with the two. Hey Naruto, Kankuro started to say hi before he shot past with a big grin on his face. No time to talk, she's mad, Naruto shouted as he ran past several people as Tsunade came into the camp like a freight train. Naruto, Tsunade shouted as entered the camp. She stopped and slowed her breathing. She was the Hokage. She shouldn't be chasing Naruto around like a pissy little girl. What's wrong, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade turned to see Tamari walking up. Just Naruto being a pervert, Tsunade replied, looking around for the young man. Oh well, he was trained by the Toad Sage, Tamari commented as she walked away. Tsunade rolled her eyes and laughed slightly. She was right about that. Naruto stood on top of the cage tower looking down, seeing Tsunade had cooled. I'm still not dumb enough to think I'm getting off, Naruto thought as his sense of smell kicked in. I don't like it when people try to sneak up on me, Naruto said as he turned to face the Mizukage. She smiled lightly before they gave each other a hug. It's been a while, Naruto, Mei said, draping her arm over Naruto's shoulder. It has been, hasn't it? Naruto asked, putting his arm around her waist. So what's this I've heard about? You have more than a few girls? Mei asked. Only 7, Naruto said, grinning. 7 girlfriends? How do you keep up? Mei asked. I'm packing. Naruto laughed as Shizune opened the door to the roof. Mizukage-sama, the first meeting will be in just a few minutes, Shizune said with a bow. She's one of them, Naruto said, pointing at Shizune. Really? Mei asked. Shizune, tell her a little, Naruto said. Shizune's face went red hearing what Naruto was asking her to say. Oh, I want to hear this. What has Naruto done to you? Mei asked, moving over to Shizune. Oh well, we have say whenever he wants, Shizune said, gripping her kimono slightly. But what does he do to you? Mei asked. I go down on him. He goes down on me. 69s, missionary, doggy, cowgirl, reverse cowgirl, anal, tit jobs, hand jobs. Shizun's face was still red as she tried to give Mei the list. What's your favorite? Mei asked. When Naruto has say with me and Anko, Shizun answered. Well, I'm going to let you two talk. I'm gonna go find some food, Naruto said, jumping off the building. The first meeting had come and gone, leaving all the cages tired from their long day. The cages all decide they would simply just call it a night, leaving their seconds to have the night off. Currently Kankuro, Temari, Karui, Shizun, Akatsuchi, Kuretsuchi, Chojuro, and Naruto all sat within a tavern passing bottles of sake back and forth. So what's new with you, Naruto? Asked, elbowing him slightly. Nothing much, just living in the leaf with a couple of girls, Naruto laughed. A couple of girls, you say? Kankuro asked quickly. Yeah, like 7, Naruto replied, still laughing. Really couldn't pick one, Kaori said with a huff. Well, sorry, but they kinda picked me, right, Shizun? Naruto said, making the woman smile. Shizun, you're one of the 7? Temari asked. Yes, I am, Shizun said drunkenly. If any of you 3 want to go, just let me know, Naruto said with a loud echoing laugh. He quickly found himself on the ground with a hurting jaw. It was a joke. Who hit me? Naruto asked, his buzz gone in an instant. He stood to see Akatsuchi's fist clenched. You will not talk about Kuretsuchi like that, Akatsuchi growled. Calm down, Akatsuchi. I wouldn't sleep with him even if I am drunk, Kuretsuchi said, holding back a laugh. I don't know, hick, Naruto-ish pretty good, Shizun said, nudging Karui. The woman just rolled her eyes, but she couldn't lie, he was very handsome. Maybe just a little fun. Karui's mind wandered to what he could do to her. What? No, I won't be another one of his girls, not sober at least. Karui grabbed another bottle of sake and rather quickly downed it. Naruto took notice to this rather quickly but chose to bide his time. Naruto and the trope of cage aids stumbled into the street. None of them could walk straight but Naruto. Thanks to Kurama, he didn't get drunk easily, nor did he stay drunk nearly as long once he got drunk. Shizun currently leaned against him with her hand trying to get into his pants. No, Shizun, we promised Ba-chan, Naruto said, stopping his black-haired lover. Oh please, hick, Naruto, I want your big fat coc now, Shizun said, making the rest of the group all either blushed or rolled their eyes. Wow, you're a slew when drunk, Temari laughed, watching Shizun nearly crawl on Naruto. Shizun, Naruto's voice stopped her dead. She smiled, thinking he was going to give in. Sleep. Naruto placed his hand over her face, putting her to sleep instantly. Whoa, that was cold, Kuretsuchi said, seeing Naruto catch Shizun's body. Think you could take her back to her room for me? Naruto asked, looking to Temari and Kuretsuchi. Sure, they said in unison, taking the sleeping woman from him. Naruto looked back to see only Karui standing behind the others, having walked away. You okay, Karui? Naruto asked, looking at the lightly swaying woman. I think I'm going to be sick, Karui said, moving to a wall. Naruto moved to her side and moved her hair out of her face as she emptied the contents of her stomach against a wall. He chuckled lightly, seeing she had greatly overthought how much she could drink. Karui felt darkness overtake her before she could say another word. Naruto. Karui shouted, sitting up. Bad idea. Her head was throbbing and the bright sun forced her back down to hide her eyes. You're awake. Good, I made some food, Naruto's voice came from the doorway. Karui looked up and felt a blood rush to her face. There Naruto stood in just his kill me bright orange pants. She gulped slowly as she eyed Naruto up. Did we? Karui asked. No, I'm like this because you barfed on my jacket and shirt. I still can't figure out how you missed my pants, Naruto said as he left her to get up. Karui shook her head lightly. Could it get much worse? Yes, she was in her underwear and couldn't see her cloths anywhere. Where are my clothes? Karui nearly shouted out. Wash. You can borrow one of my shirts, Naruto's voice replied. Karui dropped her head in defeat and picked out one of Naruto's clean shirts. It was Naruto's turn to feel his mouth water. Karui had stepped out of the bedroom in his favorite black shirt, and to top it off, it only just passed mid-thigh on her. Her long milk chocolate legs forced Naruto to look away or risk a fatal nosebleed. What did you make? Karui asked, sitting at the counter. Just some miso soup. I'm not a great cook, Naruto said as he gave her a bowl. So what happened last night? I blacked out shortly after puking, Karui said, taking in the aroma of the soup. You asked me to carry you back to your room, I picked you up and you hurled on me, Naruto explained as he poured himself a bowl. So why are we here? Karui asked. I didn't know what room was yours, Naruto replied as he started on the soup. Oh, well, thanks for not taking advantage of me, Karui said, downing her soup in at a rather fast speed. I don't do drunk women, I want them fully aware when we. Yeah, Naruto stopped himself. Is that all that stopped you? Karui asked. If you were sober and willing, I would rock your world, Naruto said with a smile. Prove it, Karui grinned, forcing Naruto to choke on his soup. I'm sorry, what? Naruto asked. She wants you, Kurama laughed. Quiet you, Naruto replied quickly. Prove it, rock my world, Karui said with a light purr. Naruto stood from his spot and moved to the dark-skinned beauty. Are you sure? Naruto asked as his hand cupped her cheek. Very, Karui replied. Naruto pulled her up quickly, locking their lips together. Karui's hands moved on their own and ran up his sculpted bare chest. Her fingers found their way into his hair and tugged lightly. She wasn't sure what it was, but she wanted more of him, as much as she could get, over and over. Karui felt Naruto pulled her up onto his arms, lifting her off the seat completely. Her body reacted on its own again and wrapped her legs around his waist, letting him carry her. Naruto ran his hands down her body, groping her lusciousness as he stumbled towards his bedroom. Their bodies crashed into the walls, tables, counters, pictures, lamps, just about everything they could hit they did hit. But they finally managed to find the bed. Naruto pulled back slightly and his eyes were filled with the sight of Karui pinned under him. Her red hair laid out on the bed and her amber eyes locked on him with pure lust. Fuck, you are beautiful, Naruto said, moving to kiss her. You don't think I'm flat-chested? Karui asked with a gasp as his lips found her neck. No, your body is perfect, Naruto said as he pulled off his black shirt that covered her body. He stopped dead, seeing she had removed her bra before putting on his shirt. He already knew he would never get enough of her milk chocolate skin, he had to keep her, she had to be his. Perfect, Karui asked, feeling Naruto's hands start to move up her back. The very definition of the word, Naruto said as he moved back down and started to kiss her neck once again. Karui let a light moan escape her lips as Naruto's kissing started to move down her body. Her back started to arch as his lips found her stiff nipples. Karui let her voice go and moaned loudly. I love that sound, Naruto said as he continued to move south. Karui moaned again, feeling his lips on her stomach. She had never felt this hot before. Naruto looked up to her as her reached her womanhood. Karui just gave a nod, seeing what he was about to do. Please, don't stop, Karui begged as Naruto started to lick at her folds. Naruto slid a hand up her leg and started to rub his fingers over her entrance as his tongue flicked over her clee. Karui's body reacted heavily to every touch Naruto gave her. Each time his tongue ran over her lips, her back would arch and she would gasp loudly. You taste pretty good, Naruto joked as he continued to lick at her entrance. So good, Kaori moaned as she snayed her fingers into Naruto's yellow locks. She pushed her his up, trying to get him to sink his tongue deeper into her. Craving the main course? Naruto asked. Yes, Kaori cried out. Naruto just chuckled, then crawled his way up her body. Last chance, Naruto said with a grin. Just fuck me, Karui shouted. Naruto nodded and pushed himself into her needy cunt. Naruto grasped the sheets on the bed as he gave a groan. He hadn't expected her to be as tight as she was. Fuck, you're tight, Naruto said, simply holding himself inside of her, letting her adjust to his girth. Sorry, not my first, but it's been a while, Karui said as her legs wrapped around his waist. While nothing, you've just got a nice tight body, Naruto said as he finally started to move. Karui's back arched up, pushing her chest into his as he pumped into her. Ah, Naruto, Karui cried out, feeling Naruto pick up his pace as her body fully adjusted to his size. Yes, moan my name, Naruto said as he snaked an arm under Karui and brought her up onto his lap and started to thrust up into her. Karui did as Naruto asked and constantly moaned his name, begging him to move faster or to pound harder. She was head over heels for the ecstasy that he was filling her with. Her hair flew wildly as she bounced with all her might. She couldn't get enough. Naruto, 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 Naruto. Karui shouted his name over and over as she neared her climax. Naruto took his chance and wrapped his lips around stiff nip and gave a light bite. Karui let out a scream of pleasure as his teeth lightly grated over her nip. It was the last straw for her and she slipped over the edge and fell deep into her orgasm. Her body seized up, she couldn't even moan, she had never felt a climax this strong before. Enjoying yourself? Naruto asked as he continued to move in and out of her. Karui tried to form a sentence but only managed to mumble something about being in love or something. What was that? Naruto asked as he kissed at her neck. What was that? I loved it. Karui was finally able to form a sentence. Just a little bit of chakra-infused thrusting, Naruto said as he laid back letting her rest even though he never stopped thrusting up. More. Please more, Karui begged. Gladly, Naruto said as he rolled Karui over and pulled out. Doggy style, Naruto grinned. Karui nodded and got onto her hands and knees for him so he could take her from behind. Karui felt her eyes roll back as Naruto sunk back into her and rather quickly returned to his thrusting. His hands held his as he slammed into her, her nails dug into the sheets as she moaned. Each time Naruto would drive forward she would push back. Naruto leaned over her, his breath on her neck. You can't get addicted to this, what will you do when the cage's summit is over? Naruto asked. I want to go with you, Karui said quickly turning enough so she could kiss him. You want to come to the leaf? Naruto asked as his thrusting picked up as he was nearing his limit. Leaf, sand, cloud, stone, I don't care, I want you, Karui moaned. Naruto smiled as he finally let himself burst inside of her. Karui's eyes widened when she felt the first torrent of seed spray into her. So much, Karui nearly collapsed as Naruto emptied himself into her. Once Naruto pulled himself out of her, he watched her just fall forward with a blissful smile on her face. Well then, you're mine now, Naruto said as he still knelt. Yes, all yours, so full, Karui said as she rolled over to see Naruto's COC was still hard. She bit her lip then looked up at him. Could I suck it? Karui asked. Of course, Naruto said sitting back. Karui moved to his COC. She started to run her tongue up and down his length while her hand rubbed his balls. Ah, not many girls pay attention to those, Naruto said with a satisfied sigh. Karui said nothing and wrapped her lips around his head and started to bob her head. Naruto ran his hands into her hair as she tried to deep-throat him. Naruto gave a smile then pushed her down, helping her do what she wanted to do. Karui's eyes widened, she couldn't believe she had taken him inside of her. Naruto gave pleasure-filled groan as he felt her tight mouth and throat working his COC. He wasn't going to last all that long if she kept her speed. Karui could feel his COC throbbing in her mouth and knew what was close to follow. Here it comes, Naruto grunted as he burst into Karui's mouth. Karui pulled off and coughed as she nearly threw up. She hadn't expected him to have so much or for it to be bitter. Sorry, she coughed. I've never tasted it before, I wasn't expecting bitter, Karui said with tears in her eyes. She was still trying to regain her breath while she watched Naruto start to clean up. Don't worry about it. Ayame doesn't care for the taste either, Naruto said, knowing his ramen goddess didn't like his seed but swallowed because she wanted him. Oh shit, the summit starts in 5 minutes, Karui scrambled up and ran into the bathroom. Naruto just chuckled and went to get her clothes. Tsunade rubbed her brow wondering where Naruto was as the last cage, Mei, entered the room. He was supposed to be her bodyguard but he was nowhere to be seen. Sorry I'm late, Naruto said as he flew in through an open window and landed behind Tsunade. Where were you? Shizune asked. Getting to know someone, Naruto said, causing Tsunade's face to fall. Who? Tsunade asked before Naruto could answer. The door opened and Karui came in, taking her place to the Raikage's left opposite to Killer B. Now then, since everyone is here, shall we get underway? Gaara said as he stood and started the cage's summit day 2. Naruto sat taping his foot as he waited for the cage's summit to end. They had been talking about helping out the hidden sand and their lack of farmable lands. Instead of paying attention like he should have been, Naruto had chosen to focus in on the auburn-haired bombshell that was the Mizukage. She was stunningly beautiful. He wasn't going to lie. He wanted her and he wanted her bad. To have her underneath him begging for him to give her a good fucking would almost be a dream come true. Well, I think we can agree on the request, May spoke up, causing him to snap to attention. Thank you. It means a lot knowing that my people's livelihood is on a good track, Gaara said as the Raikage stood. I need a meal. Let's take 5 or something, said as he stretched. A half-hour or so break does sound good, Unoki said, rubbing his back. Agreed, let's convene back in a half-hour, Gaara said as he and the other cages filed out. Naruto chose to remain where he was, seeing May hadn't left. His vision was on the blue-clad woman. Oh Naruto, I didn't see you were still here, May said as she put down a paper she had been reading. Yeah, I didn't feel like leaving yet, I was almost asleep, Naruto said with a grin. How about you join me for a meal then? May offered. Sounds wonderful, Naruto said as the two left the room together. You know, after you left, Shizune went into a good depth about what you have done, May said as she hooked her arm through his. Did she now? Naruto asked as a sly grin slid over his face. And I must say, you're quite a naughty boy, May said as she moved slightly closer to him. Oh, you have no idea, my dear Mizukage, Naruto said as the two stopped. Truth be told, after what Shizune said you could do, I'd like to get an idea, Naruto nearly froze. May was propositioning him. Did you just ask what I think you asked? Naruto inquired. I did. Maybe tonight you would like to come to my room, May asked. If you truly want me to, I'll be there, Naruto said as the two started to walk together again. The summit started once more and Naruto had chosen to take his leave of the room, sure that Shizune would be enough since they were all talking peacefully. Naruto currently pinned a certain black-haired woman against a wall and was buried inside her. His pants down around his ankles and her pants laid on the ground next to them. Ah, Naruto, she moaned as she felt manhood moving into her. You know that comment was kind of mean, Naruto said as he kissed at her neck. She raked her nails down Naruto's back as she smashed through her climax and cried out his name again. You guys heard that right? A voice asked, getting Naruto to clasp a hand over his lover's mouth. Heard what? Another voice asked. I could have sworn I just heard a girl scream, the good scream if you know what I mean, the man said. You're a pervert, a third voice said as the voices slowly moved away. MMMHHMMM, the woman moaned something into Naruto's hand as she moved his against him, trying to milk his coc. Hungry are you? Naruto joked as his started to pound into her once again. Well, you're about to get what you want, Naruto added as he neared his limit. He gave her another few thrusts and burst into her, making her moan deeply into his hand. Ah, Naruto, I love you, the black-haired beauty said, panting. And yet you said you wouldn't sleep with me even if you were drunk. Naruto asked. It was a joke, Kuretsuchi said with a blush. But what if I took offense to it? Naruto asked, looking at the girl. Please, punish me, Kuretsuchi begged as she looked at Naruto. How shall I punish you? Maybe I should go see Karui, Naruto said, making the girl's face fall. No, please don't stop, Kuretsuchi begged, grabbing a hold of Naruto. Please fuck me hard, she begged more. Then bend and beg, Naruto said with a grin. He wondered what Unoki would say if he saw his beloved granddaughter like this. Kuretsuchi didn't hesitate to turn around and sick her as out for him. Please Naruto-sama, fill my sooty hole with your potent seed, Kuretsuchi begged as she shook her as for him. Now how can I resist that? Naruto asked as he grabbed his and drove himself deep into her. Kuretsuchi moaned loudly. She could care less if she got caught. Naruto ran his hands up her body, sliding under her shirt to find her stiff nipples. Naruto-sama, Kuretsuchi cried out as she leaned against the wall. Her eyes were rolling back from all the pleasure Naruto was pumping into her. Kuretsuchi's body was trapped in the throes of their passion, her mind completely blank. She only needed the man that was fucking her. Here it comes, Naruto groaned as a shiver went down his spine and he blew his load into his black-haired lover. Kuretsuchi slid down the wall slightly as Naruto pulled out of her and reached for his pants. Wait, let me clean you off, she said as she turned and knelt before him, Naruto gave a nod and ran his hand into her hair. Her head started to bob quickly as she worked his shaft. Her tongue ran over the underside of his COC as she desperately tried to milk another round out of him. You just love sousing it, don't you? Naruto asked as he moved his free hand into her hair. Kuretsuchi said nothing and continued to bob her head. Naruto gave a low groan of approval as he felt his limit starting to approach again. Kuretsuchi's mouth just felt way too good for him to hold back very long. Naruto chuckled slightly hearing the pink-eyed girl moaning on his COC as she rubbed herself. Her added moaning gave Naruto the last bit of pleasure he needed and he burst. Kuretsuchi gulped down every last drop, leaving her thirsty for more. We should head back. The meeting should be starting up soon, Naruto said as Kuretsuchi pulled away, clearly wanting more still. The two dressed, shared a deep passionate kiss, then left to the summit room. Naruto was doing his best not to burst out in laughter. Tsunade and Mei were currently arguing about which village would host the next Chunin exam. Since the war, the villages hadn't held one. Unoki and Gaara all seemed to be okay not holding the first one in almost a year and a half. While Mei and Tsunade both demanded that their village should be the host. What was causing Naruto to nearly laugh was that they were currently slightly too close in their arguing, so their impressive brios were pressing together. Mei was demanding that Kiri hold an exam as they hadn't in many years due to their previous cage, then the revolution. While Tsunade argued that the first exam should be somewhere that is seen as safe. I got it, how about you two shut the hell up? A shouted, losing his temper. He was quickly silenced by a death glare from both women. Not the best idea, Raikage-sama, Naruto said with a chuckle. The meeting should have been over a half hour ago, Unoki said, rubbing his brow. I could end it rather fast, but I don't feel like getting hurt, Naruto replied with a laugh. I'm more than willing to risk you, Gaara said, cracking a grin. Oh ouch, Naruto said, laughing at his friend. Naruto looked to see the women parted just enough. He took a breath and moved in. His actions made both women freeze along with the entire room. Naruto had sneaked up on Mei and groped her luscious mounds. Do I have your attention? Naruto whispered huskily into her ear. Naruto. Tsunade roared as she clenched her fist. I'm out, Naruto said as he took off, followed by both Tsunade and Mei. I guess that works, Unoki said with a light chuckle. I hope they don't kill him, Gaara said as he stood from his chair. Now maybe we could just calm down a little, Naruto said as his back hit a wall as he was currently being stared down by Mei. She had chased him through a good portion of the village only for them to wind up back in the summit room. How dare you do that, Mei growled. Naruto took a gulp. He really didn't want to fight. And not tweak my nippus, Mei added with a lustful voice. Whoa, I like this, Naruto said as he watched pull off the light blue dress she was wearing. Naruto gulped as his eyes drank in her nearly gnawed body. He couldn't believe his eyes at first. There she stood in just a matching pair of bright orange panties and bra. Like what you see? Mei asked as she drew closer. Very, Naruto said as he started to pull away from the wall only to be pushed back against it. No, you were a bad boy, no touching, Mei said, her green eyes enthralled Naruto, making him nod and stay where he was. Mei ran a hand onto his chest and down into his pants. She licked her lips lightly when she felt his half-hard member almost begging to be freed. Naruto groaned lightly as she stroked him slowly. Mei, pull it out, Naruto groaned. It does seem like this little guy is begging to be free, Mei smiled lightly as she leaned in and kissed at Naruto's neck. Her hand still stroked him, keeping him partial restrained in his pants. Oh, how can you wear pants like this? Your COC is so restrained, Mei licked at his ear as her other hand moved down, unbuttoning his pants. Don't stop, your hand feels amazing, Naruto jumped slightly as the cool air of the room nipped at his just freed member. Mei gulped lightly, see how large he actually was. Oh my, you weren't joking about packing, Mei said as she stroked Naruto's largeness. And my stamina helps a lot, Naruto said as Mei's kissing started to move down his body. Naruto paused. He looked to see his jacket was open and his shirt had been cut open. When did she? Oh, forget it, Naruto groaned in approval as her lips kissed over his toned stomach. He rested his head back knowing she was going to suck him off. Do you have any idea how hot I've been since that little chat with Shizune a few days ago? Mei asked as her tongue ran along his length. I would have helped you out any time, Naruto replied as a shiver ran down his spine. I know, but holding out a little makes it all the better. Letting the need build and build until you can't take it anymore. My last straw was your touch, Mei said before she wrapped her juicy lips around his COC head and quickly soused down to his base. Naruto gasped as he felt her go straight to a deep throat. His hands moved into her hair as she started to work his shaft. Holy crap, that feel amazing, Naruto said with a groan. Mei's head started to bob on his COC. Her lips kissed at the base of his COC and the head when she pulled off. Her hand would stroke him each time she pulled off to give some special attention to his balls. Naruto groaned lightly, feeling her mouth's work. Crap, Mei, Naruto grunted as he hit his limit and burst into her mouth without warning. To his utter delight, Mei gulped down every last drop, except a single drop that oozed out of the corner of her mouth. She pulled off and ran her finger along her lower lip, collecting the last of his seed. She locked her eyes on Naruto's as she slowly licked her finger to entice him more. Not as bitter and my ex, actually you're quite delicious, Mei grinned as she moved her hand to her back and unhooked her ba. Naruto dropped his head back as she wrapped her now free brias around his still hard COC. Aw damn, Mei, Naruto groaned. Your COC is so hot it feel like my brias are roasting, Mei said as she started to move her brias, stoking his COC. Naruto's hands moved in, but before he could touch her again, her eyes stopped him. I let you touch my hair while I soused you, but no more, she said, reminding Naruto he was being punished at the moment. He fought his desires and let Mei have full control. He quickly decided that it was a good idea. Her brias felt amazing and he couldn't hold back his groans of approval. Damn, Mei, your tits are so damn soft, Naruto groaned as he held back his limit. No need to hold back. We can't get to the main course until you come, Mei said as she picked up her pace and started to stroke faster. Naruto obeyed and let himself go. With a groan he burst and shot his cum all over Mei's brias and face. So much even after a second load, I'm impressed, Mei said with a grin. She took a few seconds to clean of her brias before she stood and put her dress back on. I thought we had the main course still, Naruto asked as he pulled his pants back up. We do, I just want a change of scenery, Mei said as she took his hand and led him from the room. Mei's back arched as she felt her blonde-haired lover's tongue run slowly over her femininity. Her toes curled as his skilled tongue flicked over her clee and her voice echoed out as her dove his tongue into her. She was in a state of euphoric bliss and it didn't seem to have an end in sight. Ah, Naruto, Mei moaned as she felt his tongue sliding in and out of her folds. Naruto said nothing and continued to work his tongue. Mei's eyes rolled back slightly as she reached her climax and slipped over the edge. To her delight, Naruto lapped up all her juices before he moved away. Slowly Mei focused back into to see Naruto climbing over him. The moment he reached her lips, she enacted her plan. Before he knew it, Naruto was pinned to the bed and tied down, his legs and arms tied to the bed posts, and a very lustful look filled Mei's eyes. Now I have you just where I want you, Mei said as she moved herself over him and rubbed her still sensitive femininity over his still throbbing and rock-hard COC. How long do you think these will hold? Naruto asked with a low lustful growl. Long enough, Mei replied as she lined up and impaled herself on Naruto's thickness. Her voice echoed out as she stretched to fit Naruto's size. So big, so good, Mei moaned as she started to bounce without regard for the blonde man under her. Hers had gained a mind of their own and moved as fast as they could. Yeah, ride me, Naruto moaned out as he pulled at the ties. He didn't care if she wanted to be on top, but he wanted to grab her. His are those bouncing orbs of righteousness. Mei's bouncing didn't slow even after she hit her climax. Naruto's COC just felt too good to stop, it just seemed to hit all the right spots. Naruto pulled as the ties again. He was starting to get desperate to touch the bombshell above him. Mei's has finally slowed as she smashed through her third climax in less than 5 minutes. She looked down and a sly smile slid over her face. I've got a few more things I want to do before I let you go, Mei grinned as she slid off his COC and inched forward just slightly. Naruto's eyes widened when he felt her pushing his COC against her rear entrance. Oh hell yeah, Naruto said as he felt his head push into her ass. He dropped his head back and moaned loudly. Hers was so tight it felt like it was about to rip his dick off. Naruto groaned loudly as she sunk onto his member. Oh god, so full, Mei moaned as she nearly climaxed, just getting his COC into her. His slowly started to bounce again as she rode his throbbing manhood. Naruto groaned in approval as he pulled at the ties again, still trying to break free. Damn it, you're so tight, Naruto groaned as his started to move. Mei placed her hands on his chest, trying to steady herself as she bounced like there was no tomorrow. Her long hair draped over her sweaty body as she started to near her climax again. So good, Mei moaned as she leaned back, moving her hands from his chest to his thighs as her back arched and her eyes rolled back. Mei nearly screamed out as she reached her climax and came hard. Naruto followed after a few more hard thrusts. Naruto gave one more hard pull and snapped the ties that held him down. Mei's eyes widened when she saw the look of unbridled lust in the blonde's eyes. She didn't even manage to say a single word before he moved and pinned her down under him. His eyes, though still blue, showed a ferocity usually held for the fox. I don't like being tied down, Naruto said in a feral voice. Mei moaned lightly as his lips and teeth attacked her neck. She wasn't going to resist, she loved it when she was dominated. Naruto didn't wait for her to ask him or beg him to fuck her. He lined himself up and sunk to his base in a single thrust, forcing to nearly scream in painful pleasure. Her back arched up, pressing her chest against his as he started to roughly fuck Mei's womanhood. Yes, harder, Mei cried out as her arms hooked under Naruto's back and her nails dug into his shoulders. Naruto didn't seem to notice her nails, all he could focus on was filling the voluptuous woman under him with his seed. He figured she wasn't on anything, so he was going to risk it. He pulled up slightly so he could look Mei in the eyes as he slammed into her. Just love it, don't you? Naruto asked as he picked up his pace once more. Mei couldn't respond, her mind was nearly blank due to the overload of pleasure Naruto was pumping into her with each thrust. Her hands ran over his chest as he hooked his arms under her legs and leaned into her slightly. Mei couldn't take it much longer, her body reached her climax so fast she couldn't even try to hold back. Naruto felt her walls tightly constrict his member, suddenly letting him know she had hit her climax once again. Naruto pulled out and forced her onto her hands and knees. Mei looked over her shoulder as Naruto lined himself back up and slammed back into her. He grabbed at her, giving him more leverage to slam into her. Mei arched her back as he pumped into her. She pushed herself up so she could run her hands through his hair. Naruto kissed at the nape of her neck as he slid one over his hands over her and found her clee. Mei's eyes widened slightly as a deep moan emitted from her as he toyed with her clee and slammed into her. Oh god, Naruto, Mei cried out as her body trembled from the overload of pleasure. Naruto gave a light grin as he continued to kiss at the nape of her neck while his hand and manhood worked her womanhood. Mei was completely lost in her pleasure-filled heaven. Get ready, he whispered huskily into her ear as he neared his eruption. Give it to me, Mei said lustfully. Naruto grinned as pushed her back onto all fours and picked his pace up once more. It only took a few more thrusts for him to burst, both of them seized up as they came. Naruto groaned loudly as he emptied himself into Mei. Oh, we are just getting started, Naruto grinned seeing Mei panting heavily. She looked to him with slight shock, seeing he was still hard as a rock. After a moment she ran her tongue along her lips and nodded, showing she wanted more. Naruto pulled free of her and quickly lined himself up with her as. Mei nodded and braced herself for his thickness. In one thrust he completely buried his COC into his and without hesitation he started to slam into her over and over. Naruto. Mei moaned loudly as her blonde lover roughly fucked her. It didn't take long for Mei to hit her climax yet again. Her arms were on the verge of giving out as Naruto seemed to have endless stamina. You're mine now, Mei. Naruto grinned as he leaned over her and started to grope her large breasts as he slammed into her as. Yes, all yours, Naruto-sama, Mei moaned out. Nothing mattered anymore. Just Naruto. The hidden mist or the cage's summit, neither one mattered, she just had to have more of him. Naruto grinned hearing her submission and started to pick up his pace again as she started to beg for it. He loved to hear the high and mighty Mizukage moaning like a bitch in heat under him. He was going to enjoy this for as long as he could. What do you mean you want to leave? I shouted in question. I want to move to the hidden leaf, a certain red-headed cloud ninja said nervously. Tsunade quickly lowered her head and gave a long sigh. Let me guess. Naruto? Tsunade asked rhetorically. Karui nodded and blushed lightly. I know he has several women with him already, but I want to be with him even if I am one of many, Karui explained as she looked down, unable to look her Raikage in the eye. I was about to speak when the door nearly flew off its hinges and Unoki walked in with rage in his eyes. Where's Uzumaki? He shouted. I don't know, he's a full-grown man, he goes where he wants, Tsunade said as her eyes winded seeing Kuretsuchi standing with almost the same look at Karui. He's done something to my granddaughter. She's talking madness, Unoki said as he glared at the Hokage. She's not the only one, said indicating to Karui. Kuretsuchi looked to Karui and both girls quickly blushed and smiled knowing they were both member of the Naruto bandwagon. Grandfather, I want to be with him, he makes me happy, Kuretsuchi said trying to calm her grandfather. No man needs more than one woman. And from what I've heard he already has several leaf girls, Unoki replied. Raikage-sama, Karui managed to look up at her cage. He gave a loud sigh and placed a hand on her shoulder. If this is what you truly want I can't argue, said as he took the Kumo headband Karui had offered him. You are now no longer a cloud shinobi. If the leaf will have you, you are free to go, said as he rolled his eyes and walked out of the office. Karui nearly cheered and quickly left. I wonder if he's claimed Temari already. Tsunade wondered as she zoned back into to see the shortest cage still glaring at her. What do you want me to do? Your daughter is a grown woman and can make her own decisions, Tsunade said as she moved to leave. And as I told Karui, if you wish to make the leaf your home you are welcome, Tsunade then left with one mission on her mind. She needed to have a conversation with a certain blonde-haired man. Naruto. A voice moaned as the aforementioned blonde moved into her. He couldn't believe his luck. First Karui, then Kuretsuchi, followed by Mei and now Temari. He didn't even try to woo Temari, she just showed up at his apartment and said some BS about wanting to thank him for everything he's done for the sand, her family and the whole shinobi world. He saw through that in a heartbeat and called her out on it. He was surprised that she wanted sex. Temari seemed like she was immune to his alpha aura. But yet here she was under him and begging for more. Her back arched up into his chest as he moved in and out of her. He could tell she was one of the switch girls. A lot like Ayame but in reverse. Ayame was a sweet innocent girl until you got between the sheets. Then she turned into a horny sex-crazed freak that loved take it hard and fast. Temari was a strong no-nonsense kunoichi. But in the bedroom she became Hinata. Shy, timid and wanted it slow and passionate. Naruto was more than happy to give her what she wanted. It had been a while since he had a slow passionate lover. And he was more than happy to give it to her. Both froze as a sharp pounded came to his door. Their eyes met and Temari mouthed, Gaara. Naruto actually felt a little bit of fear. He respected Gaara so much he didn't want to anger the young Kazekage. Naruto, stop fucking whoever you're fucking and open this door, Tsunade's voice boomed. I guess we have to finish this another time, Naruto said as he pulled out of Temari. Promise? Temari asked as she moved out of the bed and started to dress. Naruto quickly claimed her panties and grinned. Now you'll have to come back, won't you? Naruto smiled, causing Temari to blush heavily and nod before leaving through the window. Naruto didn't even care to get dressed and moved to his front door. He looked through the peephole to ensure Tsunade was alone. He really didn't want to open the door and see Unoki with her. Thankfully she was in fact alone. Naru. Her voice died on her lips as the door opened as she got a full front view of a nod and hard Naruto. This best be important, Naruto said, slightly irritated. I was having some fun with a certain San Kunoichi, he added. Tsunade shook her head slightly and looked him dead in the eyes. We had a promise that you would have sex while we were here, Tsunade said, pointing a finger at him. Oh yes, I remember it well. I promised I wouldn't have sex with Shinzune while we are here. You never said anything about Karui, Kuretsuchi, Mei or Temari. Naruto grinned, causing Tsune's face to fall. Mei. Tsunade's mind screamed. He had taken the Mizukage. That was when her mind saw what Naruto had done. He had claimed a girl from each village. He had Kuretsuchi from Iwa, Temari from Suna, Karui from Kumo, Mei from Kiri, and most of the Konoha girls. Are you going to talk or just stare? Naruto asked, snapping Tsunade out of her daydream. What do you mean, Mei? Tsunade asked. I think that was rather obvious. Me and Mei played 20 toes, Naruto said with a grin. Hell, if it isn't a safe day for her, I'd say she's gonna be carrying my child after that session. Naruto couldn't help but grin slightly. You think this is funny? Tsunade growled as she poked him in the chest and forced him back into his apartment. Why are you so mad about this? I'm not raping these girls, they are willing when we start and happy when we are done, Naruto replied as he grabbed Tsunade's wrist so she couldn't poke him again. Bullshit. There is no way one man could sat that many women, Tsunade growled, pointing at him with her free hand, which Naruto quickly grabbed as well. Ba-chan, clam down, I'm not hurting these girls, Naruto said as he forced Tsunade against the wall without even noticing it. Let go of me, Naruto, Tsunade said, feeling heat rise to her face. He was still buck as not, and now he was barely 5 inches from her. She could feel his still hard COC on her leg. Are you getting embarrassed or is it something else? Naruto asked, losing his grip enough that she could easily get free. Yet she didn't free herself, her blush only increased. You're being dumb, Tsunade said, looking away. I think it's quite the opposite. You're being quite irrational, Naruto said as he leaned in and kissed her neck. After all, you're burning with desire. I can smell it. Tsunade's eyes widened as she looked at Naruto. You're wrong, she replied. Then why have you not tossed me back? Naruto asked, forcing Tsunade to realize he was hardly holding her wrists. By the time she freed her wrists, it was almost too late. Her body was on fire and she needed it. Get off, Naruto, Tsunade said to her surprise. Naruto stopped and moved back. I don't force myself on people, Naruto said as he smiled at her. If anything, they force themselves on me. Take Mei for example, she actually tied me down, the blonde added as he took a few steps back, giving her plenty of space. Can you really keep up with this many women? Tsunade asked. I've kept up with Anko, Ino, Hinata, Ayame, Shizune and Sakura just about every day in the village. You think Mei, Karui, Kuretsuchi, and Tamari are going to exhaust me? Naruto asked. Well, Tsunade started. Koi, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, I've got the stamina of several tailed beasts, Naruto said as Tsunade finally gave in and launched herself at the man. Naruto smiled as she moved at him. He caught her and flipped her down onto the couch that he had moved towards. Suna Koi, Naruto said, making Tsunade blush heavily. Their lips met passionately and shortly after their tongues. Tsunade's hands moved to her sash and quickly pulled it away as Naruto's hands roamed her body. They were all hands and lips and Tsunade was in heaven. Naruto's lips tasted like the sweetest sake. Her hands moved to his body and groped over his rather sculpted form. Naruto's hands were doing the same to her. It was as if they knew exactly where to touch. One hand moved up to her neck and ran into her hair, with the other slid into the hem of her pants, ready to remove them when asked. Naruto, Tsunade gasped for air. Naruto just put his forehead against hers and smiled. I am yours tonight. Command me, Naruto said as he kissed her forehead. Take me, make me feel like one of your girls, Tsunade nearly begged. Naruto nodded and he hoisted her off the couch and made his way towards the bedroom. Tsunade moaned loudly as Naruto's tongue ran along the inner of her thigh, moving towards her neglected womanhood. Her back arched, pushing her breast into his hands. She moaned again as he blew a gentle stream of air onto her needy wet entrance. Tsunade panted lightly, she couldn't keep up with the constant pleasure. Naruto, oh god, more, she moaned out, making the young blonde man smile. He was more than happy to oblige her. His tongue moved along her lower lips and flicked over her clee. The simple act caused Tsunade to moan loudly and tremble in pleasure. You're very sensitive, Naruto smiled as he pushed his tongue into his Hokage. Tsunade only moaned in happy response as Naruto's tongue assaulted her. His tongue was a little too skilled, it worried her how good he was at pleasuring with just his tongue. Naruto, no more, Tsunade begged. Naruto obeyed and crawled up her body, letting her feel his erection poke against her leg a few times. Tsunade ran her hands up Naruto's chest and nodded, telling him to go the distance. Naruto leaned down in kissing at her neck as his COC pushed into her needy entrance. Tsunade moaned loudly as her back arched, feeling her new lover's thickness penetrate her. Naruto's hands ran over Tsunade's body, groping and caressing as they went. They only stopped once they found her large luscious mounds. His thumbs ran over her stiff nippus as he started to build a rhythm to his thrusts. Cry out my name, Naruto whispered huskily into Tsunade's ear, trying to get her to give him what he loved the most, a woman under him that was screaming his name as she became lost in ecstasy. Naruto. Tsunade screamed as she crashed through her first climax. Naruto had to slow his pace, feeling her body suddenly constrict around his COC. After her body finally relaxed, Naruto grinned and pulled back, lifting Tsunade onto his lap, letting her bounce on his manhood. Tsunade didn't hesitate to start bouncing her his. She was already lost in the throes of their passion. She finally understood why Naruto had so many girls and why they were happy with him. He paid so much attention to her body. He caressed her entire form, leaving nothing out. It was as if his hands had a mind of their own and knew exactly what to do. So good, Tsunade groaned as she picked up her speed. She was losing herself to him. She needed to have more of him, all of him. Naruto groaned and started to slam his upwards, driving his COC into Tsunade's wetness. Tsunakoi, Naruto groaned as he started to near his limit. He felt her walls tightly squeezing his COC as she bounced. His eyes watched her bouncing breast until he couldn't resist and took one of her nippus into his mouth, sucing and lightly biting it. Tsunade moaned loudly as she raked her nails down Naruto's back. Her eyes rolled back slightly as she hit her climax. Naruto dropped back, letting Tsunade have full reign of the pace. His quickly started to bounce again as she drove herself wild on Naruto's COC. God Naruto, your COC is so good, Tsunade moaned, her hands on his chest to stabilize herself. Your body is freaking great too, Naruto replied as he finally lost it and burst into Tsunade's folds. Tsunade threw her head back as she screamed out in release. Her body trembled in ecstasy as the euphoric waves washed over her. Tsunade collapsed forwards, resting her head on Naruto's chest as she panted heavily, trying to regain her breath. Naruto ran a hand through Tsunade's hair as he hummed lightly. Now you understand, Naruto said as he felt Tsunade kiss his chest. She smiled lightly and sat up slowly. What did you do? Tsunade asked. Seeping Kurama's chakra into the women I have sex with increases their pleasure tenfold, Naruto replied as he rolled them over, pinning Tsunade under him. Now I want you again, he added, kissing her neck. Tsunade couldn't hold back a laugh as his lips and tongue tickled her neck. Naruto rolled Tsunade over, getting her onto all fours before he sunk himself into her again. I bet you just love taking your girls like this, Tsunade said as Naruto started to move. Depends on the girl. Sakura actually prefers doggy style while Hinata tends to hate it, not that she'd ever say so, Naruto explained as he built up his thrusts. Tsunade's back started to arch as her new lover built up his thrusts. Ah, Naruto. Tsunade moaned loudly, feeling Naruto's COC hit her most sensitive spot over and over. She was quickly thrown from climax to climax, coming over and over. Her body couldn't keep going with the constant flow of pleasure. You're going to pass out, I can see it in your eyes, Naruto said as he kissed at the nape of her neck. His eyes locked on a mirror that they were facing. Look at the sooty look on your face, it's so freaking sexy, Naruto added as his hands moved over her body, cupping her large breasts as he continued to pound into her. Naruto, I can't keep going like this, Tsunade moaned as her nails tore through the sheets. Almost, Naruto replied as he started to thrust as hard and as fast as he could. After a few more long hard thrusts, he reached his release and emptied himself inside of her again. The two collapsed onto the bed. Tsunade placed her head on his shoulder and rather quickly drifted off. I really could get used to this, Naruto smiled as he ran a hand through Tsunade's long blonde hair as he slowly drifted off himself. Thanks for listening. In the next part. In the meantime, please leave a review, I would love to hear your feedback. Especially if it helps me improve the overall story.